don't get fooled again.
Hi, I'm Jenks, and this is my YouTube series on young voter turnout. Someone who's your age, I understand a lot of the questions and fears that you have about the voting process and why everyone makes such a big deal about it. A large segment of the voting eligible population, aged 18 to 29, does not vote, but an even larger segment that doesn't vote are those of us between the ages of 18 and 21. Many young people in general, including many friends of mine at Westchester University of Pennsylvania, didn't vote in this past midterm elections. Their reasons varied from an overall disinterest in politics or voting to those that were afraid to vote. This fear of voting is one driven by an overall feeling of non-understanding about the voting process. Others felt that the voting process is fraudulent and that our votes won't even count. Another reason that a lot of young people didn't vote is because they felt they weren't informed enough on particular candidates and that all television ads were doing was one candidate calling the other fat or talking about his mother. What many people don't understand is these attack ads are intended to do just that. Confusing the youngest voting group, which is also the largest, is a tactic that politicians may use to convince a young voter not to vote. Now, how does that make you feel? Do you want a bunch of 45-year-old men deciding whether or not you should do something? And the final question I pose to all of you is, if not us, who? Who do we want to make decisions for us? Do we want to change policies that are unfair and don't represent our best interests as young people? If we're not happy with something that our local or state government does, how do we take action? And will we let our futures be decided by 65-plus-year-old voters? I certainly don't, and I want to convince you to do the same thing. I'm not a 30-something-year-old guy standing in the quad of your college campus shouting for you to make your voice heard or whatever kind of mumbo-jumbo they use. I'm a fellow college student, experiencing the same kinds of changes and questions about the world as you are. Now take a trip with me and learn a little something about what it means to vote. So, did you register to vote in this last election?
I'm registered, but I didn't vote. No.
Why didn't you vote?
Because, I didn't really know anything about the candidates. All I ever saw was them on TV bashing each other. So, I didn't know if they were credible or not, and I just wasn't really that educated in it. So, I wasn't just going to vote just to say I voted.
Right. Would you have made arrangements at home with your polling place for absentee ballots?
Yes.
You would have?
Yeah.
Do you know how to go about that?
No.
There were a couple of points I hit on in my interview with Elise. Number one was the fact that she was registered to vote, but did not in this past election because of how the ad she saw on TV made her feel about the bickering and slanderous nature of political ads run during election season. She feels like she isn't getting any information on the issues or what the candidates stand for when all they're telling her is how much their opponents spent on haircuts. And number two is the fact that she knows that the option of obtaining an absentee ballot exists. She doesn't really know what channels to go through to obtain one. For the first question Elise brought up, which many of the people whom I have interviewed have asked me, is where to get good, credible information about the candidates running for office. A great place to start is on the web with the candidates themselves' websites. Here you'll find information on how their plan is better than another candidate's, or just basic background information about what they did before politics or what they've done in politics. Another great source of information, and a very credible one as well, is a website appearing on the screen, and will also be in the description box directly below this video. Here's a listing of all of the organizations that rate members of our Congress on how much they have voted for or against legislation pertaining to anything from abortion to women's rights, and anything in between. They're given a percentage scale based on how often they would go with an issue in a vote. So if you're an issue-oriented voter, this is a very important thing for you, where you may not want to just follow your party identification or the one that's laid out by your parents. This will give you a much more accurate judgment of what the right candidate is for you, and you can feel as if your vote is informed. Second concern we talked about was the acquisition of absentee ballots, especially for those of us who can't leave school on election day to go home or vote. You can easily apply online for these directly, and for the cost of a postage stamp, send the request to your town clerk, who will in turn send you a ballot. Absentee ballots in most states can be requested up to 1 week before the election, which is pretty close. Coming from a state and a region which doesn't really promote early voting, and it hasn't permeated our region a lot, I'm not too familiar with the process. But if your state does have early voting, what are you waiting for? You have a total of 3 to 4 weeks to either mail in or go down to your county courthouse and vote. There's no complaining as why you can't make it to the polls if you have early voting. And with absentee voting, things are just as easy. So there really shouldn't be concerns about whether or not you should vote. So did you vote in this past election?
I did not.
Are you registered to vote?
Oh, no, I'm not.
You're not registered to vote?
No.
Okay. What were some factors that led you to not register to vote for this election?
Well, the main reason was I was just too lazy to go vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there any particular reason why you didn't vote in this election as opposed to if it had been a presidential election?
Well, I feel like as a teenager or 19-year-old, I'm just a lot less affected by who gets elected. That's just how I personally feel.
Okay.
So I didn't have enough motivation to go vote.
All right, cool. Thank you.
No problem.
So you guys just heard Dylan's responses to my questions. Some of the things you may be asking yourself are those really views of the typical college student? Unfortunately, that's true. A lot of college students don't believe that our vote counts, that we're even young adults yet. They think we might still be stuck in the high school days where everything is controlled by the adults who run our lives. It's not true. In fact, our group, when mobilized, can do amazing things. For instance, in 2008, in North Carolina, President Barack Obama won only one age group in that state, and that was the group of 18 to 29-year-old voters. He won that group by a margin of about 2-1 over McCain votes. In all other groups in the state, Obama lost by over 4%. This really shows us that if you can mobilize young voters and we can go out to vote, that we can make it work at the polls. So, are you registered to vote?
Yes, I am.
Why did you vote in this past election?
I did not vote in this past election.
Why did you not vote?
Personally, I did not vote because I'm just a little... I don't feel very confident in the voting process. The reason being with the whole, I believe it was in 2001 when George Bush was elected president, him and Al Gore, the whole with people like they're mistallying the votes and this county having to recount them and all that nonsense. It was very unstable and disorganized. And
Does it make you feel like your vote won't count?
Sadly to say, yes. I mean, what if my vote were to get thrown away in the trash somewhere or deleted somehow, you know? It's very unpatriotic.
All right, thank you. One of Lee's primary concerns with the election process, and one of the reasons he says he didn't vote, is because he doesn't trust that his vote will make it to count. It is true that in 2000 there was an egregious error in Palm Beach County, Florida, where the butterfly ballots were not filled out correctly. Butterfly ballots are a terrible system which aren't used anywhere in the country anymore. Most voting is done electronically and safely. As for another concern that a lot of young voters have, especially those who have been victims of its reach, is the apparent voter fraud that exists in this country. Voter fraud in this country in the past 10 years has yielded only 34 federal court cases, and half of those have been dismissed. The voter fraud movement is a suppression act by the GOP, the National Republican Party, to decline the young vote. Younger people are more inclined to believe that the votes will be tampered with, which is what interest groups hoping for vote suppression are looking for. So remember, protect yourself by not believing in voter fraud. Thanks for taking that short YouTube journey with me. I hope you all liked it. I hope you learned a lot. I certainly did. As a political science major, I get told a lot that I really care so much more about politics than a lot of other people do. I find that's actually not true. Other young voters really do care. They just really don't know how to express themselves sometimes, or they don't want to express themselves by voting because they're afraid of some of the negative consequences that they don't even know exist. They don't even know what negative consequences are out there from voting or not voting. I hope I've cleared some of those issues up today. If you need any more information or have any further questions, please comment my video. Let me kick it to my boy Jim Ellis now. Send you off a little something, and I'll catch you guys later. All right, peace.
Okay. I don't understand. Voting's easy as could be, especially for young college kids like Andy, you and me. Snag an absentee ballot. You can grab it online and make sure that you vote early. You can do it on time. Ensure that you register near your local town. After this, you'll be set for when elections roll around. Just because we're young doesn't mean our votes won't count. I'm serious, y'all. This voting issue's paramount. No such thing as voting fraud. That is called fallacy. So tie this all together, y'all, and make it your reality.